Welcome to the Life After Sugar podcast, the podcast that's not just about sugar, but about your relationship with it and also with food and especially with yourself. So if you want to discover your life after sugar and hear inspiring stories from all kinds of people who also cut out sugar in their way, at their pace, for their own reasons, this is the podcast for you. Because when you take away the sugar, you can finally discover the real sweetness in your life. I'm your host, Netta Gorman, and I have some exciting news for you. If you go to my website, aftersugarclub.com, you can get a free, simple guide to getting all the benefits of life after sugar, including more energy, dropping a clothes size or two, clearer thinking, less brain fog, and breaking free from sugar cravings and living happily sugar-free long-term. So if you want to start your life after sugar, go to aftersugarclub.com. Okay, let's get started. So in today's episode, I'm talking with Helen Hopkins. Can you tell me what it was that got you thinking about, oh my gosh, I've got to cut sugar?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had two young children at the time. I was I owned a really successful wedding planning business. So everything was going really well, but I was in a really high stress situation. So my dad was really poorly. In fact, he had 4 brain tumors over a period of 28 years. So just for like 28 years, I just was like high stress constantly. And my comfort was always food. So as a child, my mum and dad would say, well, let's go out for a treat. We'll go out for a coffee and cake. Or, oh, we're going to go to the beach, but we'll have an ice cream when we get there. And then we'll have fish and chips. And everything was always centered around food in my family. So I'd led this really high stressful existence. And so to kind of, I guess, balance my stress, I turned to high sugar. And I joke, because obviously as a wellness coach, I talk about this story a lot, but I say that I basically lived on cake, carb and cola. And that's basically my diet. My diet was anything sugary, sweet, comfort eating. That's all I craved. And then 4 years ago, I started to feel really unwell. And having watched my dad be so poorly, I knew that I couldn't let my kids go through it. And I knew that I had to take action. So off I went to the doctor, convinced that I had something really terrible wrong with me. I was Googling my symptoms. So I had things like pins and needles in my hands and my feet, kept falling into these really deep sleeps, like you had very sluggish tummy, just couldn't process information, was really foggy, was like really impatient. And the doctor was lovely. And she said, look, we're going to do some tests. And I was like, I'm convinced it's a fuel issue. I'm convinced I'm putting something in my body that my body isn't happy with. And it turns out I had early pre-diabetes. So basically my body was saying, wait a minute, Helen, you're not treating me very nicely. You're constantly stressed. You're looking after 2 young children, trying to build up a business, and something's got to stop. So when I went back and got the diagnosis, I cried for about 3 days. And then I was like, I'm going to turn my life around. I'm not going to be this person where I can't sit and play with my children. I was having debilitating panic attacks. And obviously that's a combination between high sugar diet and stress. Of course, it's not just the sugar, but the combination of me fueling myself for comfort, being highly stressed, and obviously my body being in free flow at that point actually made me really poorly. And since then, I've been on a long journey with my sugar. And within 7 or 8 weeks, I totally cut out all sugar and all fructose in my diet from diagnosis.
Wow. And is that what the doctors told you to do?
Yeah, so they recommended Michael Mosley, which is an author who basically has a corrective diet for diabetes. And so it was high fat in the form of meat, protein, and green veg, so quite like keto-y. And so I basically just did that for about a year. Now, it wasn't sustainable forever, as you and I both know, you can't sustain a diet like that forever. But for that year, for literally from that kind of 7 or 8 week period onwards, I just started to feel like me again. It makes me feel quite emotional talking about it. Like for so long, I'd been so lost in this sea of overwhelm, anxiety, stress, sugar, processed food, that I didn't know how to be me anymore. I wasn't the mum I wanted to be. I wasn't the friend, the daughter, the wife, the me I wanted to be. And so, yes, I totally turned my life around, and I really haven't looked back. Like, it's been such an amazing turning point. And I turned 40 this year. And when I look back on the last 4 or 5 years of that journey, the last 4 or 5 years have been the best of my life. You know, they have been the ones where I have a spring in my step, I have drive, I have confidence, I can talk to people that I've never spoken to before. You know, they're the ones that show me that anything is possible. And really all of that came from that diagnosis and that diet tweak or change.
So it was the silver lining.
Yeah, and I really believe that with anything, there's always a learning, there's always growth. And for me, the growth was be kind to yourself and show your children how to be kind to themselves. Like, you're not a battering ram. You don't have to be everything to everyone. Allow yourself to grow as a woman and show your girls, my 2 children, how to do that. You know, they deserve that. They deserve this incredible, amazing life, as do you. And show them how it's done.
And you're an amazing role model for them.
Thank you.
And I do believe that if, you know, having a girl or girls, I've got one, you've got 2, you know, it's especially touchy where food is involved, because of, you know, once they get, my daughter is 12 now, and it's on, you know, on the cusp of body image and all that stuff. And I say to myself, I hope that she sees me as a role model of someone who just enjoys her food and enjoys her body for what it does for her, and not just what it looks like as some sort of, you know, decoration.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, she will see us, as well as my girls, they'll see that we really value ourselves, that we invest time and energy in ourselves. You know, I think obviously you grew up in the UK the same as me, and we're from that generation where our mums were all about the family, weren't they? And everything was about nice houses and making delicious dinners. And actually, we're a wave of women, a generation of women who is turning the tide on that, and who are starting businesses and having their voice listened to and rising up and being empowered in a way that my mum definitely wasn't. And so I just want to show my girls that anything is possible. And actually, if that means that I have to be the trailblazer, that I'm the one that's uncomfortable at the front of the queue doing something new, then I will absolutely do it, because for them, I want them to know that everything is within their reach. And just touching as well on their food, they do have sugar in their diet. They do have balance, because, you know, especially at things like Christmas, Easter, children's parties, like even school birthdays in the school, you know, everywhere there is sugar. And it's about allowing them to understand that we need whole food, we need Mother Nature's larder. And if you want to have sugar, that's fine, but we need to have some balance. It can't just be sugar all the time. They went through a stage of going, Mummy, I'm really hungry. Can I have a chocolate biscuit? And I'm like, no, if you're really hungry, you can have some carrots and some hummus, or you can have, you know, a wrap with some ham in. Like, we do not have that for hunger. That's not going to fuel you. That's not going to pick you up. And in fact, that's just going to send you down a rocky road that you do not want to go down. And I'm sure you've had this with your daughter previously too.
Exactly the same. Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, you're never too young to understand the concept of A, hunger and false hunger, and B, well, if you're hungry, then what you need is some nourishment.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's about, and I know I still do this now, I'm always forever trying to find things that nourish my soul and my hunger at the same time. Because sometimes you do want something that tastes a bit different, or you want something with a different texture. But it's about being really, I guess it's just about allowing yourself to explore the opportunities and the options, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. And what you were saying just before, I just want to come back to what you were saying about the sort of keto-y diet not being sustainable, which for my personality, it's not either. Following any kind of rules is not sustainable for me.
No. I'm the same. And I think, you know, obviously turning 40 this year, your body changes over time. And so at one point, so when I was, you know, this high protein, high fat, no sugar, green veg, it worked for a year and it was amazing. But after a period of time, it didn't work anymore. And our bodies change. And especially, I guess, around our ages, your body starts to change. And the way that you, you know, your metabolism changes, and the way you exercise, your body changes. And I think I really like to approach food and eating in a real fluid way. If it's not working for me now, how can I switch it up? What can I do differently? What's worked in the past that maybe I haven't done for a while? Like, how can I learn from this experience, and how can I move on? Because for me, when it comes to energy, and obviously I talk a lot about energy in my coaching business, it's like, how can I get the best energy? Because best energy gives me clarity, motivation. It allows me to ace my to-do list and also be present for my kids. So I'm forever looking for new things, and I bet you're the same.
Yes, for sure. Definitely. And I mean, you ask people, do you want more energy? Who's going to say, no, I'm fine just flopping on the couch. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think lockdown's been really tough. The COVID's has been really tough. And I know obviously you're not based in the UK now, but we are on a national lockdown. And I hear from so many women that stress levels are going up, which means for most people, comfort eating is going up, which means that our anxiety goes up. That means that, our bodies can't process the food. So it makes us feel really uncomfortable because our body doesn't know what's going on, and we're really stressed and we're not sleeping. And it's a real worry. But I guess the thing that you and I both know really well is that we always have a choice, don't we? We can choose to show up for ourselves in a way that we're not currently doing in this moment for many people listening.
Absolutely. And real life doesn't go away, and real stresses don't go away,
Yeah.
whether you eat sugar or not. But not eating sugar does actually help you to deal with those inevitable life stresses better. And I'm a very stressed person. You should ask my husband. But I've learned to cope with my own personality and my own reactions to stress in other healthier ways than, chocolate and biscuits and all the rest of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is so easy, isn't it? Like, I know we were talking before that you, like me, had a really high sugar diet before you made the change. And actually, it's about retraining your taste buds, isn't it? It's about, once your taste buds haven't had sweet things for a while, they just don't crave them. It's almost like they forget about them because you're eating such other delicious food. And there are so many incredible options for food out there. The world really is our oyster. And as much as we're in lockdown, you can still make incredible food at home. It's just a case of going, do you know what, I'm going to prioritize this. I'm actually going to spend some time and energy doing this because it's really important at this moment. And it's a choice, and it's something I can do at this moment.
Yes. And it's almost like cooking or meal prep, especially working mothers like us, is seen as some sort of, something that's getting in the way of what you really want to do in real life. And so we push it to the side. And I had to have a mindset shift myself to make it into not just some sort of task that you have to do, but into really a way of expressing my creativity, a leisure activity, and some me time. Like it really has become, this is like, get everyone out of the kitchen and let me just be creative and make something. And it happens to be good food.
Yeah. And I think what's beautiful about that is you don't actually have to be in the kitchen very long, do you, to make something really delicious. Like, this isn't being sugar-free isn't about slaving over the stove for 7 hours a day. Like, this isn't about giving up the rest of what you need to do in your day. This is just about saying this enhances your day. This allows you to be creative and nourish yourself in a different way. What a beautiful form of self-love to give your body the food it really desires and the food it really, really needs.
Absolutely. I mean, if you'd have said that to me 5 or 6 years ago, I just wouldn't even have registered it.
Yeah.
Because it just seemed to be so sort of out there and, esoteric, sort of, what are you talking about? I just want a bar of chocolate.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we're just really conditioned to grab easy, quick, highly processed food because it feels more convenient, but often it isn't. Those days where you get home and you think, oh, I just want to order a takeaway. Often by the time you've ordered it and it's arrived, it's an hour and 20 minutes later or whatever, and over an hour later, you could have just made something really delicious in your kitchen out of the things in your larder,
Absolutely.
And I think we often crave the easy. But actually, the more you do something, the more you flex the muscle of being in the kitchen and experimenting and using spices and different ingredients, then actually the more joy comes from it, the more confidence comes from it, and the more you're able to do it beautifully.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what they say, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. And the more you do, the more you can sort of fit in. But you're right, you know, you don't have to be some sort of master chef. Super simple.
It can be super simple. And I know I've fallen back in love with like my slow cooker since the kids have been at home. Actually, while they're having their breakfast, I can easily put something in the slow cooker, tagine or a spaghetti bolognese. Like you can put something or chuck something in, pardon me, quite quickly. And then actually you've got a delicious meal at 5-6 o'clock when the kids are saying, can I have some, I'm really hungry. Can I have a chocolate biscuit because I'm really hungry? And you're like, no, because dinner's ready. There are so many shortcuts, aren't there, of ways that you can do this beautifully.
Yes, yes. And I got an Instant Pot just recently, you know, which is like a pressure cooker that does everything.
I really want a pressure cooker. I've never quite got there. Is it worth getting?
It is worth getting. You know, I can cook a chicken in like 17 minutes.
No.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's not those pressure cookers. Like I've got memories of when my mum had one, and then, you know, you could like end up in the emergency room with those things. But these ones are really, and they do everything. My one has like a crisper and a slow cooker and a dehydrator. I got the all dressed one.
The thing is, though, if you're going to go for one of those type of gadgets, you might as well go for it, mightn't you? Because then you can do everything. I don't eat very much meat. I only eat maybe meat 2 or 3 times a week. But the rest of the family do. So there's such a benefit, isn't there, about putting a chicken on and that being ready whilst I'm making some sort of delicious vegetarian-y side dishes.
Absolutely.
I'm going to go look at it.
Yeah. Yes, I love it. And, you know, and again, you know, I'm not necessarily trying to save time in the kitchen as such, but I do hate doing the washing up. So it does cut down on the washing up. I love cooking, but I hate all the cleanup, and I'm a messy cook. So it saves on that.
Just having a couple of really good gadgets, just having a couple of recipes up your sleeve that you can whip out quite quickly can make all the difference when you're changing your habits, can't it?
Absolutely. I mean, you have experience as well for yourself and for with other people, cutting down sugar. Do you still eat flour?
Yes, I do. I am not as sugar-free as I was. I'm much more aware of sugar. So I wouldn't, it's very rare that I have like a piece of cake. It would be very rare that I'd have some chocolate or some ice cream. But I guess with a bit of convenience, I would have maybe a ready-made sauce potentially. I do have a little bit of flour. Do you have any flour in your diet? No.
Not knowingly. And I don't buy like sachets of sauce mixture anymore. But I don't freak out if there's a bit of flour in a sauce. I mean, come on, you know. So luckily I'm not celiac or anything like that. I just feel better without grains and refined grains. But I also feel better when I'm not freaking out.
So I cut out all bread as well at the same time, and bread always gives me tummy ache, and occasionally I eat it and then I get a really bad tummy ache and I always regret it, always test it though. And so actually when you go to those events, not that we can do that at the moment, but I used to feel quite anxious about, oh, well, what are they going to give me, and can I eat this, and this is making me feel quite uncomfortable, and everyone's looking at me because I can't eat any of the bread, and so that all that leaves me with is like carrots and dip and fruit. And so I think there can be quite a lot of anxiety around food when you have changed your diet. And I think as well, there's a lot of people that just don't understand being sugar-free either. There's people that just don't understand, like, well, you don't eat bread and you don't eat sugar, and, you know, I don't eat a massive amount of meat. And they're like, well, what do you eat? And it's like, well, everything else. There's a lot of other stuff that I eat. I just don't eat that. And I think in terms of society, that can be quite challenging. Did you find that too?
Yeah, definitely. Yes. Yeah, the most frequent question is, well, what do you eat? As if the word food was like not on the table, as it were. And it's like we collectively cannot imagine what food is if it doesn't come in a box or a packet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. And I get the question a lot. Well, what do you do on your birthday? Like, well, how do you celebrate? You know, how do you have a cake? It's the same with energy, isn't it? People don't realize that they feel actually like totally fatigued and exhausted until they start to eat better, or they start to move their body more, or they start to drink more water, and they suddenly go, oh my gosh, this is what life should have been feeling like. You know, we're conditioned to buy stuff in a packet, grab the ready-made sandwich, eat the cake at Christmas. You know, we're conditioned to do those things, and we don't know what life can be like until you start to make the tweaks. But you've got to be really brave, haven't you? Or have a diagnosis like I did, to say, if you don't change, you're going to get diabetes, and that's awful. The thought of diabetes was like my worst nightmare.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what's your blood sugar like now? I mean, are you no longer pre-diabetic?
No longer diabetic, totally turned it around. And as I say, so much so that if I do have something that has got a bit of sugar in, or something that I wouldn't normally eat, I can feel it instantly.
Do you live your life like denying yourself because you have to, so that you don't become diabetic?
No, I don't really. I allow myself a bit more flexibility, I guess, than you, Nita, in that.
Oh, I'm totally flexible.
Good.
It's just that my definition of flexible is not everybody else's definition.
So, like at Christmas, I bought myself a really nice box, like a really amazing box of chocolates with like 6 chocolates in, and I enjoyed every one. So I have flex, but predominantly I set myself up for success by preparing and eating really nice food. So I am full. But when you're full and you're not needing, then you don't ask for it and you don't want it.
Exactly. It's getting to a point where you don't want it, you don't need it. And for me, I don't even like it. So it doesn't even, like, sweet taste for me don't even taste good. And I used to be the one who would go for a meal out, and only kind of, I would enjoy the main course, but it was just an excuse to get to the dessert.
I was exactly the same. So often the dessert was like the treat. The dessert was, you know, we were conditioned to say, if you eat all your dinner, you can have a dessert. But actually, it shouldn't be about that, should it? It should be about eating the right food that fuels you really effectively, that makes you happy and healthy and gives you the energy and the lust for life that you're lacking.
Yeah, it's a bit of a vicious circle, isn't it, really? And, you know, when people say to me, you should treat yourself from time to time, and I say, no, I don't agree with that. I think I should treat myself all the time. What is this with from time to time? Why? Why not all the time?
Yeah.
And I do treat myself all the time. It just doesn't involve sugar.
Which for lots of people, they just don't understand.
So, and this is like the goal of life after sugar, which is, you know, this whole kind of approach of, it's about real life, and it's not about a 30-day challenge, and life shouldn't be a challenge anyway. But okay, it's not that easy to start off with. I'll give you that. It's not easy, because, and it's not just the sugar part that's not easy to give up. It's the changing your mindset and changing your habit.
For me, getting rid of the processed sugar and keeping the fructose sugar, I just didn't understand the impact of that for me. But as you say, it's a journey for everyone, and we're never going to be at the final destination, are we?
No, and it's a journey, and we're all different. So my journey is going to be different from someone else's journey. And I often say to people, don't try to be like me, try to be like you. Do it your way. I'll guide you. And, you know, some people, they stop all at once and then they realize that sort of triggers off binging behavior or whatever. Other people will start off gradually and realize that they're just delaying the inevitable. So it's, you know, and your own journey is one of discovery as well.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think, you know, coming back to that, like dialing into what your gut's telling you, dialing into that inner dialogue, like where is a really good place to start? And for some people, that will be cutting down the sugar in the coffee that you have 3 or 4 times a day. For other people, that will be removing the Coke or the Diet Coke, which I know you probably are like, Diet Coke, because whenever anyone says to me, oh, I drink a litre of Diet Coke every day, I'm always like, I don't think that's good for you. I don't think you should be drinking that. But anyway, but everyone is on their own journey.
Exactly. Yes. And maybe today that litre of Diet Coke is serving some kind of a purpose. And, you know, next week you'll sort of tap into that and see whether you can, you know, get those needs that are being met by the Diet Coke. Maybe you'll be ready to try and meet them in other ways.
Like going sugar-free, as with any habit change, takes time and energy, but it's totally worth it.
I think so too.
You know, lots of people make dietary choices that they don't talk about at all. So they'll just be happily squirreling at home, doing whatever works for them. But we need more women like you who say, do you know what? This is a lifestyle choice, and it's able to be done by an everyday woman with a family, with, you know, a daughter who I'm sure sometimes does want to go to KFC or wherever because she's at that age.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't deny her anything. We tend to keep it a bit secret because it's antisocial to be sugar-free. And I'm certainly not anti-sugar. I'm just happen to feel great not eating it. But yeah, my sort of reaction to social pressure is to say, right, I'm going to be public about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to hide this.
I think people just don't think it's even an option. I think that they just think it's too hard in modern world, but actually it's a lifestyle choice. And actually for me, I just didn't want to become really poorly. And my body was showing those signs to say, actually, you're going to become really poorly. And obviously your body was showing you signs to say, you're eating too much sugar. And long term, the health benefits are going to be incredible. Like short term, they're amazing. We've got less fog. We feel happier. The stress is kind of alleviated. It's not shown in the same way. And we're fueling our bodies, you know, all of those things. But over time, when we're in our 60s and 70s, that's when the people around us, I know both my sisters and both my sisters really, they're both quite high sugar. And they always tease me for it. And I just always say to them that you can walk my path, it's up to you. But in 10, 20 years time, you will look at me and you will realize why I'm making the decisions that I am now, because it's not just about short term for me, it's about long term. I want to be one of those grandmas that can run around the school playing field. I want to be like totally invested in my children and their children. I want to be invested in women's health. And for me to do that, I need to walk my journey, but I need to be a trailblazer. I need to be the one out the front that's making waves because someone has to.
Absolutely. So inspiring to hear that. You know, it has a ripple effect.
It really does.
And a lot of people say, you know, you may live longer sugar-free, but life will seem longer. And that is not at all my experience. I'm living more happily, better health, and everything's just better for longer.
Yeah.
There are no downsides.
For me, one of the things that I've noticed most is that I just have so much more patience, so much more bandwidth with people in my community or clients or my family. Like I'm just able to be much more present. And I think in our modern society, that's a real issue, isn't it, for people? They can't be present because we're always on, currently in lockdown, all the boundaries are blurred. You know, people are working from home, homeschooling, you know, doing everything in their home environments. And actually, it gives me so much more than it takes away. And I think that's probably the dial-in for me. Like, actually, yes, I could sit here and eat 77 Kit Kats in a day. I probably wouldn't want to. But I know that the impact on my ability to do my job, my ability to be patient with my family, my ability to be kind to myself just wouldn't be there. So it just gives me so much more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it needs to be said and repeated.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you for saying it and repeating it.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much, Helen. That's fantastic.
Pleasure.
So if you've been enjoying this podcast over the last few weeks and you're wondering how can you start your life after sugar, well, I have some good news for you. I've created a simple guide to getting more energy and all the benefits of life after sugar, and it's available on my brand new website. That's aftersugarclub.com. Go to aftersugarclub.com and download your free simple guide now. That's it for this week. Keep in touch and see you soon for another episode.